Hi, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Life on Dr. T TV. I'm Dr. T, and this is the place where emotionally sensitive, highly driven people get the emotional tools that they need to succeed. I've got this amazing guest here today, and we are all about emotional intelligence. So I'm going to read a little bit about her bio and introduce her to all of you. So this is Tara Renze, and she is an emotional intelligence practitioner, entrepreneur, speaker, inspirer, blogger, YouTube influencer, thought leader, wife, and mother, and is redefining how we unleash purpose, level up our success, and create sustainable happiness and fulfillment in all aspects of our lives. After 2 decades of success in corporate leadership and social selling, she started training, speaking, coaching, and co-founded Authenticity. Authenticity. I knew I was gonna have an issue with that one. Authenticity with a big emphasis on the one and the part at the end. She co-founded this to share her passions and help others live the lives they desire, envision, and deserve. Tara is a frequent keynote speaker and trainer at local and national conferences and seminars. Tara has a true passion and talent for guiding others to harness and realize their full potential. Through social media, seminars, insights, and writing, she helps her audience become the best version of themselves, achieve unlimited success, live in a fulfilled way, and pursue their passions. Tara takes a new and refreshing approach to helping others find purpose and be who they came to be. She combines her expertise in emotional intelligence, success in corporate leadership, and a track record in social sales with her roles as a wife and mother to offer her audience an experience and a message that are sincere, motivating, relatable, and game-changing. Tara is recognized as an inspirational leader and a top achiever at careerbuilder.com. She was celebrated as a top national sales leader as she built and led two multi-million dollar sales teams, facilitated national trainings, and provided leadership consulting to sales teams across the country. She left the corporate world to raise her two boys and successfully built a nationwide multi-million dollar social selling business with Stella and Dot, a San Francisco based boutique style accessories company offering flexible entrepreneurship for women. Tara, this is quite impressive, and I'm very happy to welcome you to the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's my honor to be here today.
This is so exciting. So I really relate to the background in the corporate world, having done the same thing and really through that process kind of realized like I'm really a psychologist, right? I'm really it's really all about the emotional stuff that's going on with people that's driving their life. But I want to hear about your journey that really brought you to be doing all of these amazing things that you're doing now for people in the area of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, so I started off in the corporate world. I was one of those crazy people who got out of college and said, I want to go into sales. I remember my advisor was like, really, you want to go into sales? I was like, I do. And so I ended up at careerbuilder.com, which is definitely a sales organization. Started in sales, moved up into sales leadership, ran a couple of their offices, and ended up doing, in the end, all their national training as well as their executive coaching and consulting for their sales offices across the country. And it was during that time when I was at corporate that that would have been like early 2000s that I heard about emotional intelligence for the first time. And I started really reading about it and understanding it. And it became very clear that our best salespeople had very high levels of emotional intelligence and were just able to connect and build those relationships, form trust. And we're convincing. They were great salespeople. And so it's something that I've just, always thought about, talked about, the emotional, the relationships, everything is ultimately the foundation of all business. And even in my role as a leader with Stella and Dot in the social selling industry, so much of that, I credit my success to understanding emotional intelligence, understanding how people show up, what their intentions are, how to navigate
Yeah.
situations, different types of individuals, leading different types of people. And then obviously being a mother has been a whole nother lesson in understanding all of that. And I've been married for almost 20 years too.
Ah,
So
awesome.
my husband and I credit so much of our marriage to high levels of emotional intelligence and understanding, and really honoring each other's authenticity on so many levels.
Mm. This is just amazing. And I love being connected to people, to fellow, colleagues on this journey of helping people really understand that our emotional foundation is basically what's driving everything in our life, right? And you mentioned some of these areas. There's just really not an area that it's not impacting, because we're living our lives through our emotions. We're experiencing them. We're driving life that way. And when you talk about all of these different aspects of your life that are benefiting from that, I really want our audience to really take that in and recognize that emotional intelligence is really the foundation for everything. And with that said, Tara, in your journey to help people, understand that better, what do you find, people tend to think about? Do you feel like people are getting that more and more? Or do you feel like it's still, like we're still really in our infancy in bringing this to our society?
I think that it's definitely something that people are becoming more aware of. Companies, specifically corporate America, has figured out that 58% of our success in business is really related to our emotional intelligence. And yes, there's certain roles and certain jobs where you have to have a specific degree, or which would require your IQ to come in at a certain level. But once people get within an organization, how they show up, their emotional intelligence plays such a big role in the overall success of that individual, but also the overall success of the organization, the company culture, what people say and feel about that company and working there, which then obviously impacts attrition, turnover, all of that kind of stuff. So we're seeing more and more companies talk about it. From an individual level, I think people are getting more curious, just because mindset and that idea of personal development on a mindset level has become really important to people, and people have recognized how that impacts our success. And again, how we show up. You'll hear me say that a lot on a daily basis. So I feel like, more and more people are tuning into it and getting more curious about it, especially those that, they see someone who's really successful, and a lot of times they realize that it's not necessarily, yes, it is their skills, their tenacity, their hustle, all that, but there's also this like it factor that those people have, and that's usually a high level of EQ.
Yeah, it's really, when you're saying that, I'm picking up on so many things, but one of them is for people to really, recognize that when you prioritize emotional intelligence, it creates a way of being that ends up actually allowing you to hustle less and work and effort in a certain way less. And then wherever you really are amped up in that effort, you've got the emotional ability to make all of that work. And I just see people working so hard and striving and struggling and believing that just hard work, is still somehow the equation. And, I think when people recognize there is a whole emotional shift that can be made, that is a whole, it's a way to just elevate your status in life. And so I'm really excited to learn more about what you're doing with people and to make that happen. So when you started to realize that that was something, really that you were keying in on, how did that then bring your career into different phases, that to where you are right now?
So I think for me, so much of it really started with my own personal understanding of my emotional awareness, understanding how I was feeling, how that was showing up in my life, when I needed to make change, when I needed to, when complacency was setting in, and that it's okay to change, to grow, to evolve, to try new things, to do new things, to really, and I know it sounds woo-woo, but to really be in good vibrational matches
Oh,
with
yeah.
people who make sense to you, that the universe is working for you. And oftentimes when we find ourselves in times of struggle or times of complacency, it's time for change. And for me, that's kind of happened when I left the corporate world. Obviously, becoming a mom changed so much of that for me. And then leaving my social selling business to start keynoting, workshopping, and really creating my message of be who you came to be, which was actually a note that my grandmother left for my two boys before she passed. She left this really beautiful letter, and the last two sentences she wrote was, be who you came to be, love will guide you. And so for years I sat on this note and thought about those two sentences, be who you came to be who you, what does this mean? Like, what does be who you came to be mean? And ultimately it means to grow, change, and evolve, that we're all born predestined to do something extraordinary, but we have to be in touch with our feelings, what we want, our desires, how we engage, how we treat other people, how we show up in our work, in our marriage, in our relationships. And that all comes down to understanding what's going on in here. And, I tell people all the time, like, you are not your thoughts. And so many people get that confused. I mean, my mind runs all the time, and I struggle with insomnia sometimes, where my mind's, spinning, going 100 miles an hour in the middle of the night. And I remind myself, I've reminded myself this year, when this has been a really tough year, obviously as a keynote speaker, someone who traveled and did big events, that when I'm feeling down and I have all the stuff going through my head, like, hey, you are not your thoughts. How are you going to choose to show up, act? What are you going to do? Which then that drives the activity, that drives the, this whole work smarter, not harder. And I'm a firm believer that we get what we believe, not what we deserve.
We get what we believe. This is a quotable, everyone. Very, very important. We get what we believe. What I'm keying in on so much here, Tara, is the grandmother, right? And as somebody who has influenced my life, my dad's mom was just one of these people that she knew how to live in purpose. She knew how to live in purpose, and including her red lipstick, which I continue to wear. And a lot of people ask me about it, and not quite sure about it all the time. And I'm like, this is her influence, because it's a way that she celebrated life, and all the way into the rest home at the very, she's got the nails painted and the lipstick, and she's this bombshell, gorgeous being. And she's really an influence on living your life in purpose, even though I don't think she ever completely talked like that. She just drove that in our family. And so when I think about this is what your mom said, or your grandmother?
This is my dad's mother, my grandmother.
Your grandmother. Okay, I want to make sure I track that right. Sorry. So your grandmother's note, be who you came to be. This is so phenomenal. And this is what I'm talking about, these important messages that can change somebody's entire life. Because I still recognize how rare it is for somebody to completely live inside their purpose with no B plan and no contingency for not living their purpose, and how much people feel they got to do all of these other things and make sure everything else is perfect before they can actually do the thing that they want to do. And how that's having our society miss out on everybody's contributions, their most important one, their most important ones, and the ones that they are uniquely here to do. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I think, what I love so much about this message, be who you came to be, she wrote it for two boys who were under the age of 2, right? Yeah. And she could have left them so many different pieces of advice on the type of person that they should become. But she didn't. She was very, very much into the universe. I mean, I've got crystals all over my house, and she was very spiritual in all of these ways, and, believed in purpose, and believed in leaving a legacy and being authentic to who we are. She was an artist, and I remember being a little girl doing art with her, and she would never praise. She would say, gosh, that's so creative. Tell me about what you're doing. Really honoring our authenticity, even though I'm going to tell you right now, it was a total piece of crap pot that I was making. But she gave us the permission to be who we came to be. And I tell people, I said, think about if someone told you that when you were 10, and then they told you that again when you were 18, and then they told you that again when you were 25, and then they told you that again after you had kids and you became a mother, and then they told you when you're having your midlife crisis in your 40s, and then they told you that at retirement. I mean, we never arrive. And there's this sense, and I think this is where people get so mixed up, is that they think that there's going to be a spot where they're like, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be, and this is what I'm going to do. And mentally, that is just not the case. I mean, we are constantly changing. I mean, who I was when I was 25 definitely was not who I was when I was 35. And I'm 43 now, and very much a different person, because I'm continuing to be who I came to be, not who I always was. And we have to give ourselves permission to continue to level up, to continue to grow, to find the right people who are on those right vibrational matches with us, which will change. And when we finally can settle into this idea of being who we came to be, it also gives us massive confidence in knowing that we're not going to be for everyone. I'm not going to please everyone. Some people aren't going to resonate with me. That's okay. I'm trying to find my people, my tribe, my purpose, and make my mark in that way. And so it is a powerful message that just, I tell it to myself, and I love hearing from people who are like, I listened to you speak 2 years ago, and I still tell myself, weekly, be who you came to be.
Yeah. Oh, this is so fascinating because, as a person that at a certain point in my life really began to listen to my own, what I refer to as my own internal navigation system, right? And I wrote a book all about the process of doing that called The Method, like how closely I follow it. And I remember I talk about how there just became a point in my life where, and I was in my younger 30s, and it was a epiphanal moment where I thought, am I going to perform a version of myself for the rest of my life? Because that seems really like an awful thing, and I don't know if I want to do that. Or am I going to be my authentic self and take the cues that are within me and all the vibrational, all the vibrational emotional intelligence in the atmosphere that's coming to me? And am I going to live my purpose and follow whatever that tells me to do? And to your point, I remember thinking, that means all the way till the last breath, whatever the next piece of the evolution is. And when I decided to do that, Tara, I felt simultaneously so much relief, but also that kind of excitement, fear, going like, okay, this is uncharted territory, because I didn't know many people around me, and no one in my family was living their purpose and talking like that. And having done this for so long now and being at home in it, which doesn't mean it always feels easy, right? but it feels clear. And when I see people, even people that we train on our team to be emotional trainers for people, making that transition from just thinking about, I got to make money in my life, or whatever it is that people are used to, I got to have security, to like, when you really settle into the fact that your purpose is going to create everything for you, when you really follow it in an action-oriented way, it's quite something, because people just they're not quite sure that that's all going to work out. So for you, being someone that lives your purpose, how does that feel for you? I'm giving you my sense of it, but how is it for you?
Well, this year specifically it's been challenging, and it's scary, and it's hard. And sometimes, it is easier to be a watered down version of yourself, because it doesn't require you to be as bold and patient, quite honestly. Yeah. And, this year specifically, when, the pandemic hit, and I saw my entire, everything that I've worked on with this message, getting certified in EQ, building the keynotes, building up my fee to where it was like a great living.
Nice.
getting the events booked, finding like all these things. And then within 1 month, gone because everything canceled. And, you know, I had those dark moments of like, maybe I should just go back to work. Maybe I should just go back to corporate, go get the job, hustle, make, you know, I knew I could make, I mean, I can make a really great living doing that.
Yeah.
And I always tell people it's in those darkest moments, in the stillness, when your authentic light will shine bright for you. If you give yourself the stillness and even sadness to sit in it, to know that like, I could do that, but that's not what I'm called to do. That's not who I am. And that's definitely not who I came to be.
Right.
And so this year, you know, this whole notion of be who you came to be for me has been, I've had to live it myself and understand that that's going to take a lifetime to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm really connecting to, you know, I think I've known, my whole life, I've known that I was an emotional scientist. I just knew it from the age of 4 years old. I had that deep sense, the way that I was looking at everybody and looking at the difference between the person that I saw my family members to be and all of these other emotional patterns and programs that were running. And I didn't have that language back then, of course, when I was little, but I knew that about myself. And even years later, when I became a psychologist, moved from corporate training and the business track to authentically going, well, what am I doing in this corporate world? What am I doing all the time? I'm being a psychologist. So I'm going to go ahead and step into the truth of that. But at the same time, I was like, but I'm not someone else's version of a psychologist. I'm not in competition with anyone else. I'm really being me and moving through this stage of my journey. And at a certain point, when I came into like, you know, putting things online and building a platform, I still had people saying to me that were advising me in the areas of marketing to like pick something like addiction, which is one of my really big specialties that I help people with, and claim that, because then you can help everybody with everything else that you really want to help them with. And I did that for 2 years. And at a certain point, Tara, when I just was like, I have got to say the truth of it. My mission here, my purpose is to help emotionally sensitive people who are also highly purpose-driven to have these emotional skills that they need. And I knew even if this takes years in the marketplace for people to go, that's a thing, that's what's going on with me, and I want to change these things, I want to up level, that when you talked about being patient with it, it's something I think it's really important for everybody to know, that you're going to move through all of these different aspects of your journey. But it's about living in it and being patient to let the you that you are evolve. And so for you, for yourself, those dark moments and all of that, like what have been the moments where you've known that it was time to change and you shifted from one thing to the other? Can you give us some examples of that?
I think when I've made these major shifts where it required to walk away from an opportunity as well as money, it's been a really deep calling to make a change that I started to feel, I always say, I don't believe that we need to be running a marathon all the time. I think that there's this over hustle mentality in America where people think that you always have to be leveling up.
Yeah.
And I actually don't. I think that we naturally level up. I think that we have strides and we go through different phases. When it turns to complacency, when you start feeling like, I've done it. I'm there. You will reach it. You will know when you're like, I did it all. I did it all here. Like this opportunity, I squeezed every ounce out of it and it felt good. And that's who I was. And now I'm feeling complacent, tired, bored. You're not resonating with the people anymore or the mission or whatever it is. That's usually when it's a sign like time for change, time for probably really big change. Yeah. And the other thing that to focus on is the work fulfilling? And when the work becomes not fulfilling anymore is when you need change. It doesn't mean that it was bad or it wasn't fulfilling at the time, but it means that you are still working on who you came to be, and there's something else for you. And just because it was fulfilling at one time, doesn't mean that that's who you are now. So I left the corporate world. I started social selling. And while I was doing that and raising my kids, I really romanticized that corporate job that I had. It was sexy. It was powerful. I was making lots of money. I was traveling. I was recognized. It was everything. And I thought I was going to go all the way with it until I realized I changed. But I got recruited to go to another company about 5 years after I had left that. And it was interesting because they did a great job of recruiting me, and they knew exactly what to say to me. And I ended up taking the job.
Oh, wow.
And I quit 60 days later.
Okay.
Because I was like, this isn't who I am anymore. This isn't who I came to be. And, we can't make decisions based on nostalgia and trying to recreate the past. We have to give ourselves permission to change, to grow, to evolve, and to walk away from things, to open up portals and new opportunities for us to continue our life's purpose, our life's journey. And that changes. I mean, I feel like you're never going to arrive, and you get one day at a time. And it's been a huge lesson for me this year, because I had events planned through the end of the year where I was going to be traveling, 3+ times a month. And suddenly I found myself not doing that. And it was a huge eye opener of like, gosh, we write our story every day.
We do.
We write our story every day. And you have to release expectations of the future and what that might look like and who you might be. You don't know who you're going to be. And there'll be a big life event that will change you. That, will change who you are and who you came to be. And so we just have to be patient and love and be, grateful for our daily, whatever we get to give on each day.
Wow. As somebody who transitioned from, like a $350,000 corporate job where I was good enough that I probably worked maybe 15 to 20 hours a week. I was in an upper management position, had the company car, the credit card, like you name it. But had that moment of clarity that just was like a moment essentially of, be who you came to be. But for me, it was just really saying, it's time to be in complete integrity with myself. And I was on this conference call, and I was listening to myself talk to this team that I was leading. And I thought I sort of floated up above myself. I was in my home office. I sort of floated up above myself, and I just looked and I thought, you are a freaking liar. You were sitting here and you are performing. You're giving an Academy Award winning performance. You've got the golden handcuffs. It's like all of this great stuff. And it's time to live in integrity. Right. And really that was the intuition and to follow that. But when I did, Tara, it was really cool because I started to see my life out all the way through like 90 something years old. And even though I didn't know each piece of the evolution, I just knew that that's what it was going to be. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how much we don't have that in school. We don't have this kind of paradigm in our world unless people like you and I are bringing it to everybody. But I realize that people like somewhere, I think they sort of at 50 or 60, there's a lot of people, it's like, that's it. And then you're just sort of going to hang out for the rest of your life. Right. And I don't think that's helping anybody. I think people start to get really sick and as they get older because they're not necessarily in the next moment of who they came to be and having that be something all the way through their entire life. And I'm just kind of curious what you think about that.
Well, I think so. I think that, even people get out of college and think that they've got their degree and they think this is what I'm going to do. And people change, things change, passions change. What's fulfilling in your life at one point in time changes. And I don't know. It is an interesting thing. And I do feel like, people get sick, people manifest things within their bodies when we're not, really ultimately doing things that fulfill us. And, we see these super happy people who are in retirement who do really fulfilling things with their time because they're living their passions and their purpose. For some people that's working at Home Depot because they love home repair and helping people pick out these things. And it gives them, it's an hourly job, but it's deeply fulfilling because they're connecting with humans. They feel like they're making a difference. They feel like they're making an impact And, people, when we're doing work we love, work that's fulfilling, it works in so many different ways for our life. And I think that, I don't ever imagine myself not working, not doing the work that I love, the mission that I love, and just saying like, oh, I'm just going to travel at that point in time. Like I would miss
the evolution, right? The evolution. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because the next part I mean, this is so important. The be who you came to be is never ending. Right. And
never ends.
yeah.
It's the day that I remember one of the things that Dot said was that we're all here for a purpose. And for some people, their purpose might be in 40 years. It might be in 10 years. It might be, and for other people longer, but ultimately, we live our purpose and then we leave a legacy based on how we chose to live our lives. Yeah. And you never arrive. Like you're always to be.
I'm thinking about these moments where we know, right? And we're really encouraging people on this show today to have that stillness, to connect with themselves, to allow the truth to come through and know what that next moment is supposed to be about in your life. And I've always found, Tara, that sometimes people hold off from doing their emotional work and their emotional development that helps them go to that next place, because the feeling of okay, now I've got to do all this change and, restructure my whole entire life. And I've always said, we first we know it and get into the honesty of it, and you don't have to blow everything up right in the first 5 minutes of it. And in fact, you're probably going to build on a lot of things that you already have going on. But how do you think about that process? And what would you tell our audience in terms of, somebody that's watching that is willing to say to themselves, you know what, I do know what I'm here to do, but I've got this whole other life going and I want to be here. And maybe it is a real gap between those two things. What would you say about that transition process?
So I think that, a couple things. One is being honest on, what do you need to survive? One, I mean, if you can't live without your paycheck, that's going to cause a lot of issues in general. Yeah. So you're going to have to you're going to have to be really honest when you're self-assessing your situation, yourself, your talents, the time that it's going to take, the limitations, meaning, a limitation right now for a lot of working moms is that they've been virtual schooling their kids. That is a major limitation, that they've got kids at home. So they can't go do things that maybe they thought they were going to do. So they're going to have to shift their time frame on how long it's going to take to accomplish things. But I think, first off, being really honest about self-assessing and how long it's going to take and how hard it is going to be. You have to know that you will fail. We have to stop thinking as failure and start thinking it as progress. Because, I always say, how do you lose 100 pounds? Well, 1 pound at a time, and then you lose 10, and then you gain 5. And then you got to lose, 10 more to stay in the positive. Good. And so is life, that we have to be patient, but we also have to be realistic. And I think for a lot of people, what happens is they start dreaming really big. I call them butterfly goals. You're a caterpillar now and you have this big vision of becoming this butterfly. And if you didn't know that a caterpillar went through massive metamorphosis, and the hardest struggle was right before it escaped the chrysalis, it became a butterfly, that you would think it was impossible. And I always say it's funny how it always comes together in the end, but people get scared and then they let that fear keep them at bay, where really, if you're feeling what I call invitational fear, meaning you've invited this fear in because you're dreaming bigger, you want more, you deserve more, you deserve more, that invitational fear is really the first sign that you're on the right track. Yeah. That you deserve it. And then it becomes understanding all the risks that are involved and making sure that you're willing to take the risks and that that you're worth the risk. So whether that be time, money, it could be the fear of failure, the risk of what is everybody going to think of me when I leave my job or I start this, because that whole being that vulnerable makes it really hard for people. All of that. So
that is really powerful. I love this butterfly example because it really is, there is a tension in that process where you are developing and transforming. And you're right about this. I feel like as that stretch is occurring, right, this expansion is occurring, it gets really difficult for people. I mean, they really go into patterns of like, I've screwed up my life, this is crazy, and it can't work. And I see people spiral so much. And for this reason, I love just helping people stay connected. What is that vision? Let's come back to that over and over and over, because otherwise, that whole uncertainty piece, you're gonna, that's gonna drive your life rather than what you want and being here, being who you came to be. But what you just spoke about, Tara, this is major. I really want everybody to this is a quotable about invitational fear. So you've had, so if I'm tracking this, you've had a desire, you're now stepping into it, you have a calling, and you're stepping into it, and that whole fear, that invitational fear is telling you you're on the right track. But can you talk a little bit more about what people can understand about that invitational fear?
yeah. So it actually feels a lot like physical fear. I always joke, I don't want, my son's always like, let's watch a scary movie. I'm like, I don't really like to be scared. Like, I am not one of those fear thrill seeker type people. But invitational fear feels a lot like that, which is why we say, whoa, this feels really scary. There's so much unknown. It makes your heart elevate. It makes you your palms sweat. You think about things. It'll keep you up at night. That's a good sign. I always tell people, like, if you're not scared or you're not fearful, it means you don't care. And when we don't care about things, we don't get nervous about them. We don't get fearful about them. We don't, like if it's not if it's not inviting in fear and getting some sort of emotion going, it probably doesn't matter that much to you.
Got it.
I always say, like, we never leave fulfilling things on the table. We never walk away from something that's deeply fulfilling that we care about. And invitational fear means, okay, this is important to me. There's something here that I'm dreaming bigger. I want more. I deserve more. And I'm willing to, every risk that's here, I'm willing to take. Because in the end, what does it matter? And quite frankly, as I tell people all the time, the time's going to pass anyway.
I feel the same way. Yeah. Time's going to go by.
It's going to be January, then it's going to be 2022. And then, your kids are going to be off to college. And you're going to be like, damn, I wish I would have started 5 years ago.
I was doing a consultation with the physician, and she had been holding back in her life to do what it is that she really wanted to do. And I just remember this really amazing moment. I just thought, just walk me through what that will be like for you as you go through the rest of your life knowing you didn't do it. And she paused for maybe something like 30 seconds. And she was like, I guess what I would do is I'd have to lie to myself the whole rest of my life to tell myself that I'm okay with that when I'm not. Yeah. And it was really a profound moment I was like, wow, I'm glad I asked that question, because it's an important answer for me too, to keep in mind all the time. And so, yeah, the time's going to go by. And that's the same way I felt when I was like, I'm a psychologist. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it might take me 6 or 7 years, but that time is going to go by. And it's one of the most important things that I've ever given to myself. And so I'm really going to be utilizing the understanding of invitational fear. I really appreciate that so much. That's going to change a lot of lives. And Tara, just when you think about the most emotionally sensitive people out there, the people who are just feeling things on the biggest level. And I know you and I can relate to that, because we wouldn't be in the area of emotional intelligence if we weren't people who were very emotionally intuitive. But when you think about the real intensity and the struggles that emotionally sensitive people go through, they have so many struggles and symptoms. And even though they've got this great superpower, it often can be creating a lot of chaos and reactivity. And a lot of these people, I should say, don't ever get to live their potential. They get stuck in all the symptoms and mental health issues. And thinking about our audience, who is a really, big population of emotionally sensitive people, what would you say to them about, being who they came to be?
I always, I ask women a lot, and they say, I don't know. And I'm like, you do know. You just haven't given yourself permission to say it, or permission to dream big enough, or permission to do, or, you have to believe in yourself beyond reason. And I tell people, like, no one's going to care more about your dreams, more about your success, more about your life's happiness than you. And it's something that we have to take ownership on. And I think most importantly, I remind people all the time, you are not your thoughts. And I say we have to be mentally fit enough to recognize when things are going on. So the other night, I was doing a keynote, and basically, like, the day before, they were like, and actually, we need you to just host the whole event if you could. Like, that would be great. And I was like, I could do the panel hosting or whatever. And then the night before the event, they were like, actually, we need you to just do it all, like the intro, everything. And so my first reaction was to panic, to get upset, to feel overwhelmed, to just be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this? And I literally had to, to get angry, to just all the things that were channeling through my mind. And I literally was like, you're mentally fit. You've got this. This is what you do. Flip the switch, take control, and kick ass. And so what could have been an all-nighter of, trying to figure this out, I'm going to mess up, letting my thoughts control everything. I took control of my thoughts and said, this is what you do. Like,
that's who you are.
They wouldn't have asked you to do this if they didn't think you were capable. And Tara, this is where you shine. Get mentally fit, and then figure out what you're going to say, go sleep on it, and get up and kick some ass the next day. And that's what I did. Wow. But it was because I was mentally fit and self-aware enough and understood that I was not my thoughts, and letting my thoughts take me down these crazy rabbit holes that could have, that I quite frankly would have lost a lot of time over. Yeah. And then I would have lost sleep over, and I wouldn't have performed well, which then that would have messed up all kinds of stuff in the universe for me.
Yeah. And what's really important for everybody to understand is then the people that you were there to serve wouldn't have gotten what they got, and that is a whole chain of stuff that when we shift and all of our reactivity, right, and we harness it into intentionality, which is what I just feel like you're talking about here, then it's a big resonating effect, because even the people you're helping you're serving and leading at that event, the infinite effect of what they do when they go home and talk to their spouse or their kids, it's so powerful. And it's really about knowing how powerful we are, and harnessing all of that energy forward. I love that story. And Tara, it makes me want to have you share with everybody, what are the things that you're working on right now, the ways that you're serving people, and the stuff that people should know about how they can follow you and work with you, and what to expect in that.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I love social media, and you'll find a whole other side of me that isn't just all about emotional intelligence. I actually love fashion and hair products and makeup and family and all that kind of stuff. So following me on social is a great way just to get to know me as a person, because I don't take myself that seriously, to be quite honest with you. But I am a keynote speaker. I primarily do women's events through my workshop, Be Who You Came to Be, as well as a emotional intelligence workshop called Unstuck, which are the six of the 15 EQ traits that we need to get and stay unstuck in our life. So an example is, and they're complementary, contrary. So how do you remain assertive and empathetic at the same time? Because if you're overly assertive and not empathetic, people are probably going to have some real choice words for the type of person they think you are. But if you're overly empathetic, which a lot of women are, and not assertive enough, you're just going to get overlooked, and you're never going to be able to continue to level up and, quite frankly, be who you came to be. So they do build on each other. I'm working on my book right now. I've been working on my book for quite some time, and it was during this year, this time of darkness and turmoil, that the book vision became very clear. And I ended up, finally now hiring the editor, hiring the publishing company and all that. So that is slated for like Q2 of 2021. And, just family is always first for me. So I have two boys who are 5th grade and 7th grade, and they keep me busy and on my feet. And then obviously my husband, and I'm sure you've heard my little dog here.
Exactly. Oh yeah, yeah. Not to forget, I'm a wiener
Yeah.
dog mom, so I'm definitely on
Okay.
board with
Yes.
that.
You joke that this has been like the hardest year for most people except for dogs.
I
They've
know they're
loved it.
loving it. I know they're absolutely loving it. And what is the website that people should go to?
TaraRenze.com.
Okay, got it. Um, okay, so at the end of every show, Tara, I ask people the same question. I'm collecting these amazing answers, and it's really exciting. Exciting. I'm going to put it into a reel at some point. And it's the question. It really goes with the be who you came to be here theme today, and it's about if for whatever wacky reason this was the last moment that you could give a message to the world that would help them live their best life or help them be who they came to be. And this would be like your legacy message for people. What would that message be?
It's hard. Well, obviously, be who you came to be. Love will guide you. I think is just so important. And when I say love will guide you, I mean your passions, the things that you care about, the things that fulfill you. And when we live life through that lens, this lens of doing things that are fulfilling, not necessarily always that make us happy, because I think that we get wrapped up in this happiness game of life too.
Yeah.
Fulfilling things are not easy. They're often hard. They require us to be tenacious, persistent, forgiving, loving, kind, gracious. That's what matters most. And that's where your purpose lies. And that's where you can truly be who you came to be. And just know that that means that you're going to change and you're going to grow. And who you are today isn't going to be who you are, a year from now. And be patient and be kind. And again, be mentally fit enough to give yourself the space and grace to continue to level up. But with all of that is, show up how you want to show up. And even on your bad days, even when you're, down and you've got a bunch of other stuff going on, you can still choose how you show up.
I love this. Tara, it has been amazing to talk to you today, and I just feel like our audience is getting so much from this conversation. I want to invite our audience to really take all of this into your mind and your heart, and implement it into your life, and to be who you came to be. And so thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.